Hey guys, I'm Shodai Erisu and welcome to episode 19 of Weekly Kaiju Reviews. And today we're taking a look at an interesting figure. It is a figure of Kabuto the Killer. For those of you who don't know, Kabuto the Killer wasn't actually from any of the shows, to the best of my knowledge. What Kabuto the Killer is basically Bandai or Subarai or whoever oversaw it had a competition for fans to redesign an already established character, and they would basically make the winning design into an action figure. And the winning design was Kabuto the Killer, who is a redesign of Ace and Mebius Killer, who is the same guy, but his name got changed, I think, midway through. But yeah, I'll probably post a link to a video, maybe, or something like that, of Mebius Killer on Kabuto here. So yeah, if you want to see what Mebius Killer actually looked like originally, click that. And if you don't, then, well, we'll just jump straight into mold and start having a look at Kabuto the Killer. So we're starting to look at Sculpt. Mebius Killer is actually quite an interesting looking character. I wasn't a huge fan of Mebius Killer myself, but this redesign here of Kabuto is actually quite interesting. So first of all, let's have a look at the head. Now, the paint isn't amazingly good in terms of detail, but we'll talk about that in a minute. In terms of the sculpt, you can see here that they've gone for a sort of samurai style look with it. He looks like a sort of, yeah, kind of an insectoid looking samurai, really. It's nice. You got this little crest here, and the bits under the eyes are cool, and the mouthpiece. Turn them around, you got this ridge up here, and this plating to the armor there, if you can see in this lighting. Just a quick thing on the back there, that hole would have been where the tag was. The shoulder arm is really nicely done. Down to the hand, you've got an interesting double hand type thing here. On the back, if you look at it from behind here, it looks like a crab claw. But if you look at it from the front, it's actually a hand, and that's like, I don't know, some kind of knuckle attachment. It's quite cool. Chest, from what my memory serves of Mebius Killer, is actually quite similar to Mebius Killer here, with the sort of color timer type thing and the armor. Okay, the other shoulder arm is quite cool, but in like reverse colors, so the arm's gold and red shoulder pad. Just lift your hand up, we'll talk about that hand in a minute. Okay, so around the waist she's got this kind of samurai tasset, which is quite cool. Sort of lots of plating. It's red at the front here, and the back. His legs are quite nicely done, and his feet are nicely detailed. One thing this figure has that I haven't seen on certain humanoid Ultra monsters is the muscle definition is quite nicely done on this guy. He looks quite buff, so that's good. Okay, so talking about the other arm, it's quite nicely done. It's actually two pieces. You got this piece of the claw here and this piece of the claw, and for some weird reason, whoever's redesigned Mebius here has given him a big crazy lobster claw. Now, Mebius Killer did have a big sort of gnarly looking hand on his left side in his original form, but it wasn't a lobster claw. Now, I like the way they've gone with this. I think the weirdly enough, the sort of lobster slash samurai motif actually works quite well. I don't know why those two things work together as a motif, but no, he looks quite good. He looks really interesting. He looks quite menacing as well. Humanoid Ultraman characters never were just sort of like dark ultras who were particularly interesting, or there were characters like this guy, and another interesting one is Zamusha, the sort of samurai guy. But yeah, when they get humanoid Ultraman characters right, they get them right. And I think they did. Whoever redesigned this, I don't know his name, but yeah, he did a good job. I like the sculpting on this. So yeah, sculpting pretty good. Okay, so talking about paint, well, now Mebius Killer himself, the original Mebius Killer, sort of his color distribution wasn't overly detailed, so I suppose it doesn't matter. The head bothers me slightly on this figure because obviously you've got the really nice gold under the eyes and around the mouth and on the crest here. The eyes are nicely done, but you've got sort of what looks like detail sculpted in there to the rest of the red bits that hasn't been painted, and it just kind of feels a little bit unfinished, the head. Maybe if these frilly bits had been gold or something like that, or like you see how they've done here with like a two-tone gold type thing. If they did another tone of gold there, That would have been really nice. But yeah, but otherwise the paint's quite good on the head. It just bothers me a little bit there. Okay, so the chest is basically totally fine. This is sort of how Mebius Killer was originally anyway. The red body with sort of bits of golden armor. Still can't fault it there, really. I like that they've gone for a sort of mismatched upper arm and shoulder colours here. If we just turn around to look there. The gold there, red there with gold. I think that's interesting. Again, it's sort of weird. This figure's bizarre, but it kind of lends itself to having the different arm sculpts. One piece of the... See, and again they've done it here, so this whole claw is gold with one red bit, whereas this claw is all red with one gold bit. So the tasset's pretty nicely done. Again, very similar to the original Mebius Killer, so can't fault that. Maybe would have liked this to be sort of coloured in a different colour gold, maybe. And maybe these red bits here, maybe in a slightly different colour gold. And around the feet, maybe these straps could have been coloured. But other than that, I think this figure's quite nice. It's quite basic in its paint, but the gold's nicely done. And yeah, it balances itself quite well with the red. My only real gripes with this figure is the straps on the boots and some parts of the head. I would have liked to maybe been painted a bit more, but no. Otherwise, the paint's pretty good for this guy. Okay, so he has some interesting articulation. First of all, he obviously has the basic articulation of all humanoid Ultraman figures. 360 degrees at the shoulders, and 360 degrees at the waist. But he also has 2 extra points of articulation. The base of his sort of crab claw here, that rotates, and this part of his crab claw rotates around like that for some reason. Articulation wise, yeah, I like that. I like this point of articulation. Not quite so sure on this bit, but it's something, isn't it? It's something a little bit more interesting. The articulation around the waist is a little bit stiff, but I think that's more to do with, if you look at his shape, he's sort of an oblong shape, not circular, so it's an oblong rotating within another oblong, so it sort of stops itself a bit there, which is a design I've noticed with a lot of the Spark dolls that seems a bit weird, but no, otherwise articulation is pretty good. What there is there is quite functional, and it's got 2 little extras which are pretty interesting. Okay, so in terms of pricing, I haven't seen this guy on eBay or Amazon all too often. My one came in a job lot from an eBay seller who was closing down his store, so I didn't actually get this at its full price. I got it for sort of a discounted price. This was about £7 on its own, but as part of the job lot all came to sort of £20. So it's not bad, if you know what I mean. I got it quite well. There's one on eBay right now that I'm looking at that is $81. So I guess this guy is quite rare. He's the only one on eBay. Yeah, $81 for this figure. So, I've seen him on Amazon for around 25 though. So yeah, anywhere between 25 and 80 something dollars it would seem. But yeah, if you can get him, I think he's definitely worth what I paid for him, around £6. And I'd say if you can find him from the £20 mark, he's definitely worth it. He's from the Ultra Monster EX series, which I forgot to mention beforehand. And a lot of the Ultra Monster EX figures, they're newer figures, but they're quite good quality. I have an Ultra Monster DX Kaiser Belial that was around £25. So yeah, I think that's a good price. So pricing wise, £25 or under, I would say, is my recommendation for what you should pay for this figure. In terms of scaling, Kabuto here stands around 6 inches. For scaling, I'm going to use the 2 sort of most recent and most popular sort of Ultra series. It's the classic Ultraman King Spark doll that I've been using for a lot of scaling. He stands 5 inches. And here is Kaiser Darkness Belial from the same series as Kabuto here. And Belial here stands just under 6 inches. So as you can see here, this is sort of the scale. You got 5 inches for Ultraman King here, just under 6 inches for Belial, and 6 inches for Kabuto the Killer. So he's going to fit in well with your Ultra Monster EX figures, but not necessarily with your Spark dolls. Now, I know a lot of people like to have these two different ranges because the Ultra Monsters sort of tower over the Spark Dolls. So, and I'm one of those people, to be honest. I mean, I've got a lot of 6-inch, some of the older Ultra Hero figures before they started making them into the Spark Dolls. So they were around 6 inches. And Kabuto fits in really well with them, as does Kaiser Darkness here. But, yeah, if you want them to fit in with the Spark Dolls, they don't, basically. They're at least 2 inches taller. So, yeah, scaling wise, 6 inches, standard 6 inches. So they'll fit in with pretty much any 6-inch figure. So what do I make of Kabuto the Killer here? Well, as you may or may not remember me mentioning in a couple of previous reviews, I like figures that aren't strictly exact to a figure. Now, obviously, accuracy is fantastic, but when a company tries to do something a little bit unique with a design, then I really like that, like with that Bandai Japan Gigan and the Imperial Godzilla. And this definitely is in that category. This is obviously being a redesign for a competition, so a fan redesigned this, and yeah, it's really cool. I was never a fan of Mebius Killer originally. I really didn't like Mebius Killer for whatever reason. He just irked me the wrong way when I watched Ultraman Mebius. But yeah, this figure of Kabuto the Killer here is really cool. I think the fact that I don't have to... Maybe if it was actually a character in the show and he still had maybe it's his personality, I probably wouldn't like him. But based purely on a visual design, I like the design, and the figure is really good. The paint could have been slightly better, but the sculpting's actually really great. I like the muscle definition, I like the claw, I really like the head sculpt. So yeah, in terms of this figure, the only things that really let it down is some of the paint. But otherwise, it's in really good nick, and it's in really good shape, and it's a great mold. So yeah, thanks for sticking around, guys. Next week is obviously episode 20, which may or may not be the end of season 1, and I might take another break. But due to the fact I had a pretty large break at one point, I'm going to try and avoid that, so we might just jump straight into season 2 with a sort of... maybe an Ultraman themed week or something. I was going to do a Gappa week, but I kind of want to hold off on that until I get a few more Gappa related collectibles, because Gappa's a big deal for me, so I want to make a big song and dance about it when it actually comes around. So yeah, I might focus on some Ultraman figures for a week or so after episode 20 comes out. So yeah, stick around for that, guys.